Cars that were swallowed up whole. In Fort Myers, there was a man we spoke with last night who was on the 20-something floor of his condominium with his 91-year-old mother surrounded by 8 feet of water. According to Governor DeSantis, you're looking at storm surge that reached 8 to 12 feet, maybe even higher in some areas. It's hard right now to just put a figure on how many homes have been damaged, but a starting point in the thousands is very likely. We do not have numbers right now on fatalities. We are expecting to get more information on that, though, from Governor DeSantis at about 8:30 Eastern Time this morning. That is when he is expected to hold a press briefing. As far as power is concerned, 2.5 million customers right now in Florida have no electricity. The telecommunications right now is very challenging. I'm not really hearing you actually at this moment. There is no cell service. They're bringing in portable cell towers to try to alleviate that. If you look at some of the counties right now that were hardest hit, where Ian really carved its way right through, we're talking about like Lee and Collier counties, there's about 3/4 or more of customers there, 80 to 85%. With no power whatsoever. So you can only imagine, under those kind of trying conditions, what it's like for hospitals who are caring for people who are already sick or perhaps are now injured, and what those staffs are doing. We spoke with Sarasota Memorial Hospital yesterday. They were camping out there, expecting to be there for days, even weeks, however long it takes to protect those patients. Port Charlotte as well. Staff members there working through the night. I will leave you with this. Flooding will be top of mind today as we are looking right now at 14 inches of rain in southern Sarasota County in 12 hours, a once in 1,000-year flood that now feels a lot more common. Let me send it back to you.
Yeah.
Sam, thank you, setting the scene for us there.
No kidding. In Port Charlotte, they had like the roof was ripped off of a hospital, and you're watching these medics wading around up to their knees in water trying to care for people. There's so many stories out there, Bill, and a lot in the wake of this horrible storm.
Yeah, good morning. There's so many people that evacuated that are wondering, how's their house? How's it still looking? I mean, that's going to be the case for maybe days until we get a good feel of just what areas were hit the hardest. And that storm surge that you saw those pictures of, they're floating the cars and in the houses. Well, that water came in, and then last night that water went out. So a lot of that water is gone. And so when we see the pictures from the helicopters, you're going to see it doesn't look that bad unless it was the wind damage. You're not going to see that water damage unless the houses were, wiped away in the waves. But that may only be on the barrier islands. So let me give you the latest on the storm. It's down to a tropical storm. We still had some wind damage overnight through central Florida and additional power outages. It did go a little further to the south of Orlando area, so the power outages in that region were a little less than expected. No one's complaining about that. So we're going to exit the storm off the Space Coast during the day today. We still have that heavy rain threat. We have a flash flood emergency in areas of Seminole County. We still have a flash flood warning around Orlando and this area from Daytona Beach through Volusia County. So we still have concerns with strong winds into Daytona Beach, New Smyrna area, and that heavy rain threat. Then we'll take the storm off the coast, and all of that rain is heading northwards. We are going to see the possibility of a tropical storm or a hurricane landfall tomorrow up there in between Savannah and Charleston, guys. So we're not completely done yet.
Hey, Bill, I have a question about that Tampa Bay. We saw the water get sucked out of Tampa Bay. It looked like almost dry on the bottom. What happened? Like, what happened to all that water?
It's the opposite of what happened where the storm surge was, because the winds on the northern side of the storm are blowing out off the coast. So it's just taking all that water and throwing it out to sea. And the opposite's happening where you have the storm surge south, the Fort Myers, the Naples, the Bonita Springs. That water is being driven in by the winds. So, yeah, it was the harbors were blown out. Those areas were fortunate that they didn't have to, the water that they got rid of.
Yeah.
That was the water that ended up to the south.
Oh, okay.
All right, Bill, thank you. And ahead of the storm, of course, thousands had to be evacuated, including from Marco Island, that is just south of Naples. And officials say what they will return to in the next coming days is horrific damage. Mike McNeese is the city manager. He joins us live. Sir, I mean, what a difficult 24 hours you have had. First of all, just your assessment so far of the damage that you believe Marco Island may have sustained.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. The first thing I'll say is, fortunately, we didn't have the kind of wind damage here on Marco Island that they suffered farther up the coast. The storm hit us, the highest end had already passed, so we didn't get in the hurricane force winds as much, more tropical storm force winds. So from a wind standpoint, we're in much better condition. We did have very high water, as high as anyone around here has ever seen. And we do have some flooding of homes. We haven't been really able to assess how much, and we're looking forward to the sunrise today to get out there and do that. We're going to find, I'm sure, a lot of boats that we don't know where they are, and a lot of docks have been destroyed, and certainly some homes are flooded. Overall, we fared pretty well, and we're very much interested in getting out there to find out just exactly how well, particularly relative to some of our neighbors to the north.
Yeah, Mike, a lot of people, I know there were a lot of people who rode out storms. They've probably ridden them out in Marco Island. Do you have any idea how many people are still out there? Are there rescues that you guys need to get to right as the sun's coming up?
We have done some rescues already. We did some yesterday afternoon. We had a few people that we could get to who were in compromised positions that we helped and reached out to this morning. We're about to find out. We're going to be out in the neighborhoods, and we have some cell service, and so I'm sure we'll be hearing from some people, but we didn't have a lot of calls overnight. We didn't have a lot of issues, people reaching out and saying they were in some sort of distress. So we're a little optimistic, but we've got to get out there and really make sure.
You said a few moments ago, it's the water's as high as anybody's ever seen there or can remember. Did you get some anecdotes from people? How have you been able to make that assessment?
Well, I saw at least one picture of a boat that showed up in somebody's front yard, which is a little unusual, I would say. But, you know, we stood outside ourselves and watched the water come up alongside of our police station where our emergency ops center is. And it just, we hadn't seen anything like it. And it was just coming really fast, and you could actually see it rise in real time. And so it was the sort of surge that we just haven't seen here before.
It's terrifying. Mike, how long before power gets restored? Is it off, by the way, in all of Marco Island?
If it's not, I'd be surprised. I know it's off for a vast majority of the island. We will be first priority this morning, clearing roads so that the Lee County Electric folks can get out. They're not really able to yet, but that's going to be a first priority. Fortunately, the water is pretty much gone for us. We don't have, I don't think, roads blocked, although we really encourage people not to come out until we can get out and make sure that there's no lines down that are compromising or blockages. But we want to get LCEC out there as soon as possible, and that's going to be one of our first priorities this morning.
Well, we know you have hard work ahead of you. Thank you so much for spending a few moments this morning. Marco Island City Manager Mike McNeese.
You bet. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Be well, be well. When you see some of the time-lapse footage, what he was talking about, how quickly the storm surge seemed to come up. So you'd have a street that was dry, and I've seen time-lapse footage online where it just all of a sudden comes up and it's 6 feet high.
And to hear someone like Mike, who's been in Marco Island for a long, long time, saying that as long as he's been there, nobody has ever seen it like this, and it ranks among the top 5 storms in the country. Hurricane Ian, a high category 4. Right now, some of the wrath, the worst of Ian's wrath, is behind us, but it is making its way toward the eastern side of Florida. NBC's Blaine Alexander is in Orlando. It's been downgraded to a tropical storm there, but a lot of folks hunkered down, and the city's theme parks are closed. Hey, Blaine.
Yeah, that's right, Hoda. Even a weekend Ian is certainly a powerful one here in Orlando. You know, and the biggest thing, the name of the game that everybody's watching here is flash flooding. Those are the alerts. Those are the concerns. Those are the warnings that we're hearing from officials. And of course, as you see right now, every now and then we'll get a very powerful gust of wind that knocks me off balance. We've got our producer kind of holding our materials right here. But if you look behind me, this is why. We've seen this steady rainfall that's been going since late last night, and it's going to continue at this pace until at least noon today. Here's why that's problematic, is because already we've seen over a foot of rain fall across parts of Orlando, and that's in less than 24 hours. And we're talking about falling at a very fast clip. We're talking about rainfall as much as 2 inches per hour. Now, when you talk about this foot total, that's more than double what Orlando typically sees in the entire month of September. Now, just in this morning, when we were driving from our hotel over to our live shot, we actually came across some of that flash flooding. We saw some roads that were already inundated with water, and that is only expected to get worse as we see this rain continue at this steady pace for the next 6 hours or so. Now, Hoda, you mentioned those theme parks. parks. We're talking about Disney World, Universal, of course, SeaWorld. All of them are closed down and expected to continue closed till the end of the day, guys.
All right, Blaine Alexander for us there in Orlando. Blaine, thank you.
And we're going to have a lot more on the storm in a few minutes, the damage, and also some new information on its projected path now. That's at 7 a.m. Eastern on the Today Show. For now, though, I'm Savannah Guthrie alongside Hoda Kotb, and this has been an NBC News special report.
So